Known for its fashion style and flair, hip-hop star A$AP Rocky is now facing years behind bars, potentially. His trial is what's trending in true crime this morning as the 36-year-old turned down a sweetheart deal on the eve of his jury selection. The Grammy-nominated rapper is accused of shooting a former friend of his near a Hollywood hotel back in 2021. And so now, if he is convicted, he's looking at a maximum sentence of 24 years in prison.
Are you a little nervous about the trial? How are you feeling about the jury selection today?
Our cameras caught A$AP Rocky this morning headed into and leaving an LA court as jury selection began in his felony trial. The 36-year-old, who faces 24 years in prison if convicted, has pleaded not guilty, and today he rejected a plea deal offer of 180 days in jail, saying, quote, "I respectfully decline."
You concerned about rejecting the plea?
Welcome back to StarHush, where the drama never stops and the tea is always piping hot. And trust me, today's story is straight out of a Hollywood thriller. So, A$AP Rocky is officially on trial, and word on the street is that Rihanna is not taking it well. Imagine this: her man, her baby daddy, her everything, facing serious time behind bars, possibly missing out on their kids' most important moments for the next 20 plus years. Y'all, this is real. And just when you thought this case couldn't get any wilder, here comes the circus. We're talking about a judge who seems a little too friendly with Rocky's mom, witnesses dropping bombshells left and right, and Rocky's legal team out here playing chess while the prosecution is stuck on checkers. It's chaotic, to say the least. But here's where things take a turn. Rocky was offered what some are calling a sweetheart deal. The prosecution wanted him to plead guilty to just one count of felony assault, get a suspended sentence, do some community service, and take anger management classes. Sounds like an easy out, right? Well, guess what? Rocky said no thanks, and that move has the internet completely divided. Some are calling him reckless for turning down what they see as a golden opportunity to walk free. Others are saying the whole case is ridiculous to begin with, and Rocky shouldn't be taking any deal because he didn't even do what they're accusing him of. And then, of course, you've got people dragging Tory Lanez into the conversation, saying if Tory got 10 years, things aren't looking good for Rocky. But is Rocky really facing that much of an uphill battle? And what's Rihanna's role in all this? Because if there's one thing we know for sure, she's not the type to sit back and let things fall apart. Now, for those who aren't caught up, here's the deal. A$AP Rocky is on trial for allegedly firing shots at his own friend, A$AP Relly, a member of his own A$AP crew. You'd think this case would be cut and dry, right? Either Rocky did it or he didn't. Case closed. But nah, this whole thing is messier than a reality TV reunion. People online are saying this case shouldn't even exist in the first place. And honestly, when you start digging into the details, you'll see exactly why folks are calling it straight up ridiculous. So let's break it all down because this trial is about to get real interesting.
How you doing this morning? How you feeling about the first day?
Doing hot, they're going into the case. Give us a room. Planning on taking a stand at all?
So here's where things start getting messy. A$AP Rocky and A$AP Relly had beef over something that should have been handled privately, but instead, it turned into a full-blown courtroom saga. And get this, apparently, the whole situation started because Relly believed Rocky didn't step up when it mattered most. For some context, before A$AP Rocky became the global superstar we know today, he was just another member of A$AP Mob, the legendary Harlem-based collective that gave him his name. Formed in 2006, the A$AP Mob wasn't just a rap crew, it was a full-blown movement made up of rappers, producers, designers, music video directors, and creatives. The way you knew someone was part of the family. They had ASAP in their name. Think A$AP Rocky, A$AP Ferg, A$AP 12e, ASAP Relly, the list goes on. Now Rocky blew up bigger than anyone else in the crew, which naturally made him the face of the group. And with that kind of success came certain expectations. The rest of the ASAP mob saw him as the one who should hold things down, financially, emotionally, and in every other way that mattered. So when one of their members passed away in 2021, there was an unspoken rule that Rocky would cover some, if not all, of the funeral costs. But according to Relly, that didn't happen. He felt like Rocky had switched up, turned his back on the crew, and left them hanging during one of the darkest times. And that's when things escalated. Relly confronted Rocky, and what started as a heated argument quickly spiraled into something way more serious. The altercation went down just a block away from the iconic Hollywood Walk of Fame, and at some point, things got real tense. Witnesses say voices were raised, fists were thrown, and then Rocky pulled out the thing. And before you ask, yes, there's CCTV footage of the whole ordeal. In the clip, you can see Rocky and Relly getting physical, pushing and shoving like it's about to go all the way left. Then, another person jumps in, trying to break it up. But just when it looks like things might calm down, Rocky reaches for it, pulling out what appears to be a firearm. But here's where it gets interesting. The footage also shows Rocky tucking it back in. No shots fired, no reckless moves, just a flash of something before he puts it away. So, was this really an attack, or just a moment of adrenaline-fueled posturing? That's the million-dollar question. Now, according to Relly, things didn't stop with just a heated argument. He claims Rocky pulled out the weapon again and fired at him, with one of the bullets supposedly grazing his knuckles. Relly says he didn't get medical attention right away though. Instead, he waited until he flew back to LA before seeking treatment. And here's where things get really shady. Reports say Relly didn't go to the cops until days after the alleged shooting. Now let's be real, if you actually got shot at and hit, wouldn't you go straight to the hospital and report it immediately? Who just sits on something like that? Waiting a few days to tell the authorities doesn't exactly scream credibility, and Rocky's legal team is all over this as proof that the accusations don't hold weight. Another issue? The footage from that night is straight up trash. It's grainy, unclear, and doesn't show the full altercation, meaning the prosecution is relying entirely on witness testimonies. And right now, their star witness, ASAP Relly, is flopping hard. Rocky's fans aren't convinced at all. In fact, a lot of them think Relly isn't just a jealous ex-friend. He's a rat. Instead of handling things internally like a real crew member, he ran to the police and aired everything out. And in certain circles, that's a major violation. Rocky's lawyers know this too. In his opening statement, Rocky's high-profile lawyer, Joe Tacopina, didn't hold back, telling the court, "This case is about one man's jealousy, which lies in greed. This is all about money and attempted extortion. Period. End of story." But hold up, this trial is way messier than just a courtroom feud. As we said earlier, the case officially kicked off on January 24th, And already, people online are raising eyebrows at the jury selection. Out of the 12 jurors, 7 women and 5 men. Not a single one is black. Yeah, you already know what kind of conversation that's sparking. Fans online are not buying this jury selection because, let's be real, how does a case involving 2 black men end up with a jury that has 0 black jurors? And this is happening in Los Angeles, one of the most diverse cities in the country. Yeah, something definitely isn't adding up. Given the massive media attention around this case, a lot of people are questioning how not a single black person made the final cut. Even civil rights leader Reverend Al Sharpton stepped in, voicing his serious concerns about the fairness of the trial. He didn't mince words either, saying, "I have been closely in touch with A$AP Rocky's friends, and though I do not know the particulars of the trial, I do know he deserves to be judged fairly by his peers, as is his constitutional right. It is absolutely ridiculous that the jury will not be fair and representative, depriving A$AP Rocky of a fair trial." Sharpton then pointed out an even bigger issue. Out of 106 potential jurors in Los Angeles, only 4 were black, and none of them even made it into the first 30 candidates considered. His exact words? "Something appears to be very wrong with the system." And honestly, a lot of people agree. But hold on, because the jury isn't the only shady part of this case. The police investigation is looking just as questionable. When Relly finally reported the incident, the police went to the scene to thoroughly investigate. And guess what? They didn't find any physical proof that a shooting even happened. No bullet casings, no traces, nothing. And here's where things get really weird. After the police finished their investigation, Relly himself allegedly returned to the scene on his own after an entire law enforcement team had already searched it. And wouldn't you know it? Suddenly, out of nowhere, Relly magically found shell casings. And of course, he brought them to the police as evidence. Yeah, people online are calling foul on this one. So let's get this straight. The police, who are trained professionals with years of experience in forensic investigations, searched the entire scene and found nothing. But somehow, A$AP Relly, who has 0 crime scene expertise, just happens to stumble upon some shell casings after the fact and hands them over as evidence. Yeah, that's a tough pill to swallow. People are seriously wondering what kind of jury would actually buy this story. But what really has fans scratching their heads is Rocky's decision to reject a plea deal from the prosecution. And honestly, that move shook the internet. Here's why. Rocky is currently facing 2 counts of assault with a semi-automatic firearm. And if he's found guilty, he could be looking at up to 24 years in prison. So when prosecutors came forward with the plea deal, a lot of folks assumed he'd take it without hesitation. The deal would have required Rocky to plead guilty to just 1 felony charge. In exchange, he'd get a 6-month jail sentence, a 7-year suspended sentence, 3 years of probation, 500 hours of community service, and anger management classes. And the biggest part? He wouldn't even have to serve time if he stayed out of trouble and followed the conditions of his probation. So, naturally, some people are saying Rocky should have taken the deal because, let's be real, 24 years versus no actual jail time is a no-brainer in most cases. But then, there's the other side of the argument. People who think Rocky made the right call by turning it down. For one, if he's innocent, why should he plead guilty to anything? And then, there's the career factor. A source close to Rocky told TMZ that taking this deal would end his career completely. The source claimed this would effectively end his career because he would lose all of his endorsement contracts, including Gucci, Puma, the Met Gala, and most importantly, he would not be able to tour. His career would be over. And it gets worse. According to this same source, taking the deal would have Rocky under the thumb for over 8 years. So, in other words, the prosecution would have leverage over him for nearly a decade. Now, here's where things take a wild turn, because Rocky's defense team just dropped the biggest plot twist in this entire case. They're claiming that there wasn't even a real firearm involved, that it was actually a prop gun. Yeah, you heard that right. Rocky's lawyer, Joe Tacopina, is arguing that Rocky did fire something, but it was just a starter gun. According to him, Rocky bought it for protection after dealing with a previous attack and even a stalker. Tacopina told the jury that Rocky fired the starter gun twice, hoping that the loud sound alone would be enough to scare off Relly and protect his friend Ills, who was also caught up in the altercation. But of course, the prosecution wasn't buying it. They immediately fired back, saying Rocky wasn't holding a prop gun at all, but rather a 9mm semi-automatic pistol. To drive their point home, they even played a 911 call from a woman who claimed she witnessed the entire thing. On top of that, they displayed a photo of the weapon they believe Rocky fired that night. But here's where it gets even more suspicious. When police raided Rocky's house after his arrest, they did find firearms, but they were all registered. That's right, every single one of them was legally owned. And guess what? None of them matched the alleged weapon in the case. So now the question is, if Rocky really used a 9mm that night, where's the gun? And why haven't the police found any solid evidence linking him to the crime outside of shaky witness statements and that questionable 911 call? The biggest twist in this trial came when the prosecution dropped a bombshell. They pulled out a ballistics report that supposedly proves Rocky fired a weapon at Relly, catching Rocky and his legal team completely off guard. They weren't expecting this at all, and his lawyers immediately pushed back, arguing that the prosecution had blindsided them by introducing this evidence so late in the case. They insisted there was no way the trial could continue unless they had time to properly review the report. But the judge had other plans. In a shocking move, the court ruled that Rocky's team had just one day to get an expert to examine the ballistics report. The court even offered to cover the cost, but the message was clear. The trial was not slowing down. Now, some fans are wondering if Rocky made a mistake by rejecting that plea deal, especially with the way things are unfolding. People are also drawing comparisons between Rocky's situation and Tory Lanez's trial, since both cases involve high-profile rappers accused of firearm-related crimes. And if Tory ended up getting 10 years, things might not look good for Rocky either. Back in December 2022, Tory was convicted of 3 felonies: assault with a semi-automatic firearm, possession of a loaded, unregistered firearm in a vehicle, and discharging a firearm with gross negligence. This all came after he was accused of shooting Megan Thee Stallion in the foot during an argument. At first, it seemed like Tory had the upper hand. He and his team launched a massive public relations campaign to discredit Megan, playing the God-fearing, devoted father angle. But in the end, everything backfired, and he was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Fans are now worried the same thing might happen to Rocky. There are some major differences between Rocky's case and Tory Lanez's. First off, Tory's case involved a well-known celebrity, Megan Thee Stallion, while Rocky's alleged victim, A$AP Relly, isn't as famous. The media was already against Tory, especially after his team tried to launch a smear campaign against Megan. That backfired badly. But with Rocky, the case isn't as clear-cut. The evidence against him is shaky. And let's be real, he's a high-profile fashion icon, married to a billionaire superstar. Unlike Tory, Rocky isn't seen as a troublemaker. Yes, he's had some run-ins with the law, but he's never been branded as someone who's heavily involved in violence or criminal activity. His PR team has done a solid job keeping his image clean. Even the judge handling the case seems to be a fan. Of course, the judge is playing the whole "you won't be treated differently because you're a celebrity" card, but it's clear that Rocky's status is working in his favor. Meanwhile, Rihanna is reportedly not handling this trial well at all. Even though she and Rocky are putting on a brave face for the public, sources close to them say Riri is struggling. She's been feeling the pressure of this case since day one. Let's not forget how stressful the situation was back in 2022 when she was heavily pregnant. She and Rocky were coming back from Barbados when LA police ambushed them at the airport and arrested Rocky right then and there. That moment was a nightmare for Rihanna. Reports say she suffered anxiety attacks and was terrified the stress could trigger early labor. Thankfully, that didn't happen. But now, with the trial in full swing, she's juggling work, raising 2 kids, and dealing with the possibility that Rocky could be sent away for years. The judge has even allowed cameras into the courtroom, so every second of this messy case is being televised for the world to see. What do you think about Rocky's trial? Is he being set up? Will the jury buy the prosecution's evidence, or will Rocky walk free? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss the latest updates. Check out the next video for more.